My son called me. "Mom, we moved to another state last week. We forgot to tell you." I froze for 5 seconds. I replied, "That's fine, son. Good luck." I hung up, opened my laptop, and sent an email to my lawyer with a very special attachment. 5 seconds. That was all the time I needed to understand that my life had just split in two. Rodrigo's voice sounded distant, almost mechanical, as if he were reading a script someone else had written for him. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was preparing the brisket chili that my grandson, Mason, loved so much when the phone vibrated on the kitchen table. I saw his name on the screen, and my heart skipped a beat. I hadn't heard from him in 3 weeks. "Mom, I'll be quick because I'm heading out," he began, without even asking how I was. "We moved to Austin, Texas last week. Veronica got an amazing job there, and well, we forgot to tell you." You know how these things are. It all happened so fast. "We forgot to tell you." As if I were the neighbor. As if I were the woman who sells hot dogs on the corner. As if I weren't the woman who gave birth to him, who stayed up all night nursing him when he had pneumonia at age 7, who sold his grandmother's jewelry to pay for his college. "That's fine, son," I replied. My voice came out calmer than I expected. "Good luck with this new chapter." I hung up before he could notice the trembling in my hands. The silence that remained in my kitchen was so heavy I could feel it crushing my chest. I looked at the pot of simmering chili on the stove, the biscuits freshly covered with an embroidered cloth, Mason's toys that I still kept in a basket by the dining table. Everything I had prepared with such love suddenly felt like a mockery. But I didn't cry. Not yet. I walked toward my room with steps that felt like they weighed a ton, opened the drawer of my nightstand, and took out my laptop, the one Rodrigo had given me 2 years ago, saying, "So you can stay connected, Mom. You're not getting any younger." How ironic. I sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed I shared with George for 32 years before cancer took him from me. I opened my email with trembling but determined fingers. I typed the address of Mr. Peterson, my lifelong attorney. He had handled George's will. He had been present when I inherited the property in the Westwood neighborhood, that piece of land now worth over $3 million. The same land where, just 8 months ago, I agreed to let Rodrigo and Veronica build our family home. Our home. What a joke. I drafted the message. Short, direct, no drama. "Mr. Peterson, I need us to start the process we discussed last week. I have attached all the documentation. It's time to act." And then came the best part, the attachment. That file I had been secretly preparing for months while they thought I was just a silly, sentimental old lady. Photographs, screenshots, audio recordings, copies of the documents I signed without reading carefully, according to Veronica, bank statements. Everything. Every humiliation documented, every lie, every penny they took from me. I hit send and closed the laptop with a dry click that echoed in my empty room. Because here is the truth no one tells you when you're a mother. There comes a moment when love meets dignity at a crossroads and you have to choose. For years I chose love. I swallowed humiliations, closed my eyes to slights, justified the unjustifiable. It's because Veronica comes from a difficult family, I told myself. It's because Rodrigo is stressed with work. It's because being a daughter-in-law isn't easy. Lies I told myself to avoid facing the most painful truth. My son had become a stranger, and I had allowed myself to become a hindrance in my own life. But that call, that "we forgot to tell you," pronounced with such indifference, was the final straw. Or rather, it was the hammer blow that shattered the glass into 1,000 irreparable pieces. I got up from the bed, went back to the kitchen, and turned off the stove. The chili could wait, or maybe no one would ever eat it. It didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that, for the first time in 4 years, since Veronica swept into our lives like a silent hurricane, I had made a decision, and this time, no one but me would be in control. I looked out the window at the street, Kids were playing tag. Mr. Johnson was watering his plants. Mrs. Davis was sweeping her sidewalk, just like every afternoon. Life was going on normally for everyone else, but for me, everything had just changed. I grabbed my phone again and looked at the last photo I had of Rodrigo with me. He was 6. We were at the Central Park Zoo. He was hugging my neck and smiling with those crooked teeth that endeared him so much to me. "I love you, Mom," read the message I had written that afternoon so many years ago. That boy no longer existed, and the woman who accepted anything just to avoid losing him no longer existed either. Because sometimes true love isn't enduring. Sometimes it's letting go. And sometimes letting go means fighting for what's yours before they take everything away, including your dignity. I put the phone in my pocket and took a deep breath. In 72 hours, my son would receive a legal notification that would change everything. And when that happened, he would finally understand that forgetting to tell your mother you moved has consequences. Because I hadn't forgotten anything. Absolutely anything. 4 years ago, when Rodrigo called to tell me he wanted to introduce me to someone special, I felt that excitement only a mother can understand. My son, my only son, had finally found someone who made him happy after so long focused only on his work as an engineer. It was a Sunday in October. I had prepared turkey pot pie, Rodrigo's favorite dish since he was a child. I set the table with the linen tablecloth George gave me for our 15th anniversary, took out the good china, and even bought fresh flowers for the centerpiece. I wanted everything to be perfect. When the doorbell rang, I dried my hands on my apron and opened the door with a huge smile. Veronica was almost 5'7", wearing towering heels that made her seem even more imposing, and a wine-colored pantsuit that screamed money. Her brown hair fell perfectly over her shoulders. Her makeup was flawless. She was beautiful. I couldn't deny it. But there was something in her eyes, something I couldn't decipher at the time. "Pleased to meet you, Mrs. Stella," she said, extending her hand instead of giving me a hug. Her handshake was firm, almost aggressive. "Rodrigo has told me so much about you." Rodrigo was beaming. I had never seen him like that, with that light in his eyes, that unwavering smile. He was truly in love, and I wanted him to be happy. So I ignored that little voice inside me that told me something wasn't right. During dinner, Veronica talked nonstop about her job at a consulting firm, her trips to Chicago and San Francisco, her ambitious plans. Rodrigo barely said a word, just stared at her, enchanted, while she dominated every second of the conversation. "What a cozy house," Veronica said, looking around my dining room. The way she pronounced cozy made me feel like she had said small or outdated. "Rodrigo told me you've lived here for almost 30 years. 32, I corrected, trying to keep my tone friendly. "I grew up here. My son grew up here. This house has history." Of course. "History is important," she replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Though sometimes you have to know when it's time to move forward, don't you think?" That was the first sign, but I let it pass. The following months were a whirlwind. Rodrigo came to visit me less and less. He used to spend Sundays with me, help me with house repairs, and we'd chat for hours over coffee. Now everything was an excuse. "Veronica wants us to go to that new restaurant. We have plans with Vero's friends. Her family invited us to Lake Tahoe." Her family, as if his own didn't exist. In February, 6 months after meeting her, Rodrigo called me, excited. "Mom, I proposed to Veronica and she said yes. We're getting married in August." 6 months of dating. 6 months to decide to spend the rest of your life with someone. "Don't you think it's too fast, son?" I dared to ask. "You're barely getting to know her." "Mom, when you find the right person, you know it. You and Dad got married quickly too, didn't you?" He was right about that. George and I had married a year after meeting, but it was different, or so I wanted to believe. The wedding was in an elegant garden in Beverly Hills. Veronica wanted everything perfect, everything controlled. I offered to help with the expenses. After all, I was the groom's mother. "Don't worry, Mrs. Stella," Veronica told me with that condescending smile. "My parents have covered everything. You just relax and enjoy." I felt like a guest at my own son's wedding. During the ceremony, when the officiant asked if anyone had any objection, a thought crossed my mind. But I pushed it back, deep down. Rodrigo looked so happy, so complete. Who was I to ruin that? After the wedding, things changed faster. Rodrigo and Veronica moved into an apartment in Chelsea, New York, a nice, modern place, but extremely expensive. When I went to visit them for the first time, Veronica opened the door with a tense smile. "Mrs. Stella, what a surprise. Rodrigo didn't tell me you were coming." "I called him this morning. He said I could drop by," I replied, carrying a container of chicken soup I had cooked for them. "Oh, right. Well, come in." Though I would have preferred to coordinate beforehand, to have the house presentable. The house was spotless. Too spotless. Like a showroom, not a home. That visit lasted 20 minutes. Veronica had an important conference, and I understood that her job was very demanding. 3 months later, on his 34th birthday, Rodrigo didn't answer my calls. I called him 5 times. Nothing. I sent him messages. Nothing. I spent the whole afternoon looking at the red velvet cake I had made for him, watching it sit there, untouched, mocking me. The next day, I received a terse message. "Sorry, Mom, I lost track of time." Veronica organized a surprise party with her friends, and I disconnected from my phone. He lost track of time. His birthday. The day I brought him into the world after 18 hours of labor. That night, I cried for the first time. I cried, clutching George's pocket watch, the watch he always carried and which I now kept in my nightstand like a treasure. "Oh, George," I whispered into the darkness of my room, "what is happening to our son?" But the worst was yet to come. I couldn't even imagine what Veronica had planned, or how she would use my mother's love as a weapon against me. Because when December came and they invited me to spend Christmas with them, I thought things would get better. I thought maybe it was a matter of time, of Veronica getting used to me, how wrong I was. The Christmas dinner was at Veronica's parents' house in Greenwich, CT, a mansion with 3 floors, a garden, and even a fountain. I arrived with my turkey and cranberry sauce and my sweet potato casserole, proud to share our traditions. Veronica's mother, Gabriella, greeted me with fake kindness. "Oh, Mrs. Stella, you shouldn't have gone to all that trouble. We already have the dinner catered." My food ended up in the kitchen, tucked away among the dirty dishes. During dinner, I was seated at the end of the table, far from Rodrigo. I heard laughter, toasts, conversations I wasn't part of. At one point, Veronica raised her glass and said, "I toast to this beautiful family that welcomed me, to my in-laws who are no longer with us but would surely be proud of Rodrigo." George wasn't there, but I was. I was there, alive, present, invisible. Rodrigo didn't even correct his wife. He just toasted with a smile. That night, I went back to my house in a taxi, alone, while everyone else kept celebrating. And there, in the back seat of that car that smelled of pine and old cigarettes, I made a decision. I would no longer beg for a place in my son's life. If they wanted to push me away, let them try. But it wouldn't be as easy as they thought. The following months were like watching someone die in slow motion. Every unanswered call, every excuse, every "I'll call you later, Mom," that never came, was like tearing a piece of my soul away. February arrived with its cold air and empty promises. On my 66th birthday, I woke up early as always. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and waited. I waited for the call that always came at 7 in the morning without fail. The call where Rodrigo sang "Happy Birthday," off-key, but with all his heart, just like when he was a child. 7 passed. 8. 9. At 10 in the morning, I got a text message. "Happy birthday, Mom. Sorry I couldn't call. I had a meeting early. We love you very much." We love you, plural, as if Veronica's love for me were real. I didn't reply. I kept looking at that cold, soulless message, and something inside me definitively broke. But life went on, because that's what life does. It goes on even when you're falling apart inside. In March, my friend Laura invited me to her family party. Come on, Stella. You can't stay alone all the time. You need a distraction. Laura had known me since we were girls. She could read my sadness even when I tried to hide it. I went to that gathering, and that's where I heard the words that would confirm my worst suspicions. I was in the kitchen helping to serve the hot apple cider when I heard the voice of Rachel, Laura's cousin, talking in the living room. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but my name floated into the conversation like an alarm bell. Yes, my friend Sandra, who works with Veronica, told me. She says that at the office, Veronica constantly complains about her mother-in-law, that she's too dependent, that she's always seeking attention, that Rodrigo can't live his life because his mother won't let go. The ladle fell from my hands, splashing hot cider on the floor. "And what does Rodrigo say?" asked another voice. Well, according to Sandra, Rodrigo no longer defends her. She says Veronica has him completely dominated. That Mrs. Stella called crying one day because she hadn't heard from them in 3 weeks, and Veronica told Rodrigo that his mother was manipulative, that she used tears to make him feel guilty. Manipulative. Me. The woman who had worked double shifts as a secretary so her son could study engineering at a private university. The one who sold the deeds to the small property my mother inherited in upstate New York to pay for his exchange program to Europe. The one who became a widow and never remarried to dedicate all her attention to that child who now saw me as a burden. I left that house without saying goodbye. Laura caught up with me on the street. "Stella, wait. Don't listen to them. It's just gossip." "Gossip," I said, feeling the tears starting to burn my eyes. "Laura, my son doesn't talk to me. When he does, it's out of obligation. His wife hates me, and he lets her. That's not gossip, that's my reality." That night, alone in my house, I did something I never thought I would. I opened Facebook and looked up Veronica's profile. I didn't usually use social media, but I needed to understand. I needed to see what she was showing the world. Her profile was full of photos. Her and Rodrigo in fancy restaurants. Her and Rodrigo on the beach. Her and Rodrigo at parties with friends. Perfect smiles, posed shots, cheesy captions about true love. I kept scrolling and found a Christmas photo. The same Christmas I had been at, invisible in that mansion. The photo showed Veronica, Rodrigo, and her parents. The caption read, "Family Christmas, blessed to have the best in-laws in the world." I didn't exist. There wasn't even a mention, a comment, nothing. It was as if I hadn't been there, as if I didn't exist. I closed the laptop so hard the screen shook. My hands were sweating, and my heart was pounding so fast I thought I'd have a heart attack right there. But the worst came in April, during the family dinner organized by George's sister, my sister-in-law, Patricia. It was her daughter's birthday, and we all gathered at her house in New Jersey. I arrived early, as always, to help with the preparations. Rodrigo and Veronica arrived 2 hours late. When they walked in, Veronica was wearing a silk blouse that must have cost more than my rent for 2 months. Rodrigo was carrying a bottle of wine that probably wasn't cheap either. They looked elegant, successful, perfect. "Sorry we're late," Veronica said with that smile I knew so well. "We had a breakfast with investors. You know how business is." Patricia gave them seats at the main table. I had to sit with the distant cousins near the kitchen. During the meal, Veronica monopolized all the attention. She talked about her promotion at the company, the new SUV they were about to buy, their plans to travel to Europe in the summer. "And well," she said at one point, delicately wiping her mouth with a napkin, "we're also looking at options to move into a bigger house. The apartment has gotten too small for us." Rodrigo nodded excitedly. "Yes, we're looking in the Malibu or Santa Monica area. Something with a yard, 3 bedrooms, with potential. 3 bedrooms. 1 for them, 1 for an office, 1 for guests. They never once mentioned 1 for the grandmother. For me. And Mrs. "Stella?" asked Patricia. "Blessed be my sister-in-law." "Hadn't you thought of something where there would also be space for her? I mean, so she's close to the grandchild when he arrives." The silence that followed was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Veronica gave a nervous laugh. "Oh, Patricia, what a thought. Mrs. Stella is very comfortable in her house. She has her things, her memories, her independence. I don't think she'd want to move at her age, do you, Mrs. Stella?" Everyone turned to look at me. I was at the back, near the kitchen, like a second-class guest at my own family's party. "No, of course not," I lied, feeling my throat closing up. "I'm very comfortable where I am." Veronica smiled victoriously. Rodrigo didn't even look at me. That afternoon, as everyone was saying goodbye with hugs and promises to see each other soon, I approached Rodrigo. I took his arm gently. "Son, can we talk for a moment?" He looked at Veronica as if asking for permission. She checked her watch. "Rodrigo, we have to go. We're meeting the Martins at 6. "Mom, can it be another day?" My son, my only son, said to me, without even looking me in the eye. "We're running late." I watched them walk away. Rodrigo opened the car door for Veronica with a gentleness he no longer showed me. She got in elegantly, without looking back, without saying goodbye. Patricia came over and put a hand on my shoulder. "Stella, that woman is no good for Rodrigo. Anyone can see it." "But he doesn't see it," I whispered, "or he doesn't want to." That night, back in my empty house, I sat in the dark living room. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't put on the TV. I just sat there, in the same armchair where Rodrigo and I used to watch movies on Fridays, where he did his homework while I knit, where we laughed and chatted until we fell asleep. Now that armchair was only mine, and the house, so full of memories, felt like a mausoleum. But something was changing inside me. It wasn't just sadness. It was something darker, colder. It was the beginning of the end of my patience. Because it's one thing to be ignored. It's quite another to be erased. And Veronica was erasing me line by line from my son's life. What she didn't know was that I still had ink. And I was about to write my own ending. May arrived with its suffocating heat and a call that would change everything. It was a Saturday morning, and I was watering the patio plants when the phone rang. Rodrigo. My heart gave a silly, hopeful jump, as if it were the first time he had called me in months. "Mom, how are you?" His voice sounded strangely animated, almost forced. "We haven't talked in a long time." 3 months. 3 exact months since we had a real conversation. "Here, son. You know, same as always." That's good, that's good. "Hey, Mom, Veronica and I want to stop by this afternoon. We have something important to tell you. Something that will make you very happy." Something important. How ironic. When something truly important had happened in my life, like when I had my gallbladder surgery last year, he wasn't there. He arrived at the hospital when I was already in recovery, with a wilted bouquet of flowers he had clearly bought at the gas station. "Of course, son. I'll wait for you." I hung up, and a strange feeling ran through my body. It wasn't excitement. It was more like a premonition, that intuition mothers develop after years of knowing their children. I spent the afternoon cleaning, cooking. I made iced tea, cut fruit, made mini hot dogs with bacon. Part of me still wanted to please him, still sought his approval as if he were that 7-year-old boy who hugged me and told me I made the best food in the world. They arrived at 5 in the afternoon. Veronica was wearing a beige dress, dark sunglasses that she didn't take off until she entered the house, and that smile I had already learned to decipher: false, calculating, dangerous. "Mrs. Stella, your house looks lovely," she said, looking around as if it were the first time she had been there, when she had been there at least 10 times. It has a very traditional charm. Traditional, another elegant way of saying old, outdated. We sat in the living room. Rodrigo was nervous, restless, avoiding my gaze. Veronica, on the other hand, was relaxed, in complete control of the situation. "Mom, we have wonderful news," Rodrigo began, finally looking at me. His eyes were shining, but I couldn't distinguish if it was happiness or something else. "Veronica is pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother." The world stopped for a second. Grandmother. I was going to be a grandmother, a grandchild. The continuation of George, of me, of our family. Tears welled up without permission. I got up to hug Rodrigo, but Veronica stepped in the way, formally extending her hand, as if we were business partners. "Thank you, Mrs. Stella. We are very excited." I sat down again, wiping my tears with the back of my hand, trying to process the information. "But that's not all," Veronica continued, crossing her legs elegantly. "We also want to share our future plans with you. Rodrigo and I have been thinking a lot about what kind of life we want to give our baby." Here it came. I felt it in the air, in the way Veronica leaned forward, in how Rodrigo looked at the floor. "The apartment where we live is too small to raise a child. We need space, a yard, a place where he can grow up safe and happy." "You're right," I said, still not understanding where this was going. "You could look for a rental house while you save to buy something of your own." Veronica let out a small laugh that made my skin crawl. "Well, Mrs. Stella, we actually came to propose something much better, something that would benefit all of us." Rodrigo finally spoke. "Mom, we've thought about your property, the one in the Westwood neighborhood, the one Dad left you. My property, the land George bought 20 years ago with all his life savings. The land that had appreciated year after year because the area became one of the most sought after in the city. 15,000 square feet in a prime location, my heritage, my security." "What about my property?" I asked, feeling my mouth go dry. "Well," Veronica took the floor, as if it were her conversation, her decision. "The truth is that at your age, Mrs. Stella, maintaining a property that size is complicated. You have to pay property taxes, utilities, and you're not even using it. It's just sitting there, empty, without any purpose." "It's my heritage," I replied, firmer than I expected. "It's what George left me." "Exactly," Rodrigo interrupted, with that soft voice he used when he wanted to convince me of something. "It's your heritage, Mom. But it could be so much more. We could build a beautiful house there, a big 2-story house with a yard, and you could live with us. We'd be a real family, as if we hadn't been before, as if the last 4 years of distance and disdain were just my imagination." "We would build everything with our savings," Veronica continued. "We have very good contacts with architects and builders. We would make something modern, functional, and obviously, we would have a special space for you, Mrs. Stella. Your own bedroom with a bathroom, so you have privacy but are close to your grandson." My own bedroom, on my own property. How generous. "I don't know," I said slowly, trying to gather my thoughts. "It's something very big. I need to think about it." Veronica's mask cracked for a second. I saw frustration in her eyes. "Mom," Rodrigo knelt in front of me, taking my hands. It had been so long since he touched me like that I almost forgot how it felt. "Think about it. You could watch your grandson grow up every day. You wouldn't be alone in this big house. We would all be together, as a family. Isn't that what you've always wanted?" He was right. It was exactly what I had always wanted. To be close to my son, to my future grandson. Not to wake up alone every morning in this house full of memories and empty of life. "And how exactly would it work?" I asked, feeling my resistance begin to weaken. The expenses, the construction, the ownership. It would all be very simple, Veronica said, taking out some perfectly folded papers from her purse. My friend Benjamin is a notary. He would help us with all the paperwork. Essentially, you would maintain ownership of the land, but you would give us legal permission to build. It's a temporary contract while the house is being built. Afterward, when everything is ready, we can make the final arrangements so that we are all registered as owners, all very transparent, all legal. The papers trembled in my hands. There were fine print, long paragraphs, legal terms I didn't understand. I don't know. Let me read it carefully. Consult with Mr. Peterson. Mr. Peterson. Veronica almost spat out the name. That man must be about 90 years old, Mom. With all due respect, we need up-to-date lawyers who understand how things work now. Mr. Peterson was 74 and had been George's trusted lawyer for 30 years. But Veronica had a way of making you doubt everything, even the people you trusted most. Mom, Rodrigo squeezed my hands. Trust me. When have I ever let you down? That question hurt more than he imagined, because the answer was, constantly, for the last 4 years. But at that moment, with his pleading eyes and the promise of a grandson, a united family, of not being alone anymore, all that clouded my judgment. All right, I whispered, but I want to read everything before signing. Veronica smiled. And that smile should have warned me that I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. The next 3 months were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. On one hand, Rodrigo was back in my life. He called me almost every day, stopped by to see me on weekends, even accompanied me to the market one Saturday like when he was a child. On the other hand, something didn't feel right. It was as if everything was too perfect, too sudden. Veronica organized everything with military efficiency. She would arrive at my house with folders full of blueprints, finished catalogs, construction budgets, always smiling, always kind, always pushing to move things faster. Mrs. Stella, look how beautiful these porcelain floors would look in the living room, she would say, showing me decoration magazines. And in your bedroom, we could put a huge closet with space for all your things. My bedroom. Every time she said it, something in my stomach twisted. One afternoon in July, Veronica arrived with Benjamin, the notary. He was a man in his mid-40s, expensive suit, rehearsed smile, a handshake that was too firm. Mrs. Stella, it's a pleasure. Veronica has told me wonderful things about you, he said, opening his briefcase on my dining table. We're going to make this quick and simple so it's not complicated. Quick and simple. Those words should have alarmed me. He put a pile of documents in front of me. This is just a temporary authorization so your son can start construction on the land. You maintain full ownership. Don't worry. It's just paperwork. And why can't he build without this paper? I asked, trying to understand. Benjamin let out a condescending laugh. Oh, madam, the bank won't lend money for construction if the applicant doesn't have a document proving their right to build on the land. It's simple bureaucracy, nothing to worry about. Rodrigo was sitting next to me, nodding at every word the notary said. It's normal, Mom. All banks ask for the same thing. I took the pen Benjamin offered me. It felt heavy, like lead. I looked at my son, searching his eyes for some sign of doubt, of warning. I only saw excitement, hope, that light that had been extinguished for years. I signed 1, 2, 3 pages, my full name on every dotted line. Perfect, Benjamin said, quickly putting away the papers. In 2 weeks, we should have the loan approved and can start construction. They kept their word. 2 weeks later, machines arrived at my property. The noise of the tractors, the dust, the constant movement of workers transformed that quiet space into organized chaos. Rodrigo took me to see the progress every week. Look, Mom, this is where the kitchen will be, huge, with a central island. And your room will be back there with large windows to let in the sun. By September, the walls were already up. It was a beautiful house. I couldn't deny it. 2 stories, modern facade, large windows. Veronica had designed every detail. One Sunday, while we were eating at my house, Veronica dropped the bomb. "Mrs. Stella, we have wonderful news," she said, stroking her 5-month belly. "The baby is a boy. His name will be Mason, after my grandfather." Mason? They didn't even consider naming him George, after his paternal grandfather. "What a nice name," I lied, feeling a pang in my chest. "And well, with the baby coming, we need to speed up construction," Veronica continued. "The problem is that the budget is running a bit higher than expected. Materials went up, you know how things are." Rodrigo cleared his throat, uncomfortable. "Mom, we were thinking, well, the land is yours, the house is going to be for everyone. Could you help us with a portion of the construction?" There it was, the real reason for all this sudden reconciliation. "How much do you need?" I asked, though I already knew the answer would be high. $850,000, Veronica said, without batting an eye. "I know it sounds like a lot, but it's an investment. It's for the house where your grandson will grow up." $850,000, the savings I had from my retirement, George's life insurance, years of work, my financial cushion, my security. "It's all I have," I whispered. "We know, Mom." Rodrigo took my hand. "And that's why it means so much to us. It would be your gift to your grandson. Imagine, when Mason grows up, you can tell him his grandmother helped build his house." Veronica added, "Besides, Mrs. Stella, when the construction is finished, the house will be worth at least $3 million. Your investment will triple." The following days were torture. Mr. Peterson called me, worried. "Stella, I don't like this. Let me review the papers you signed." But it was too late. I had already said yes. I had already promised the money. And most of all, I had already seen the hope in Rodrigo's eyes. I transferred the $850,000 to the construction company's account. I watched my bank balance drop sharply, leaving me with barely $50,000 in reserve. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay staring at the ceiling, clutching George's pocket watch. "Forgive me, love," I whispered to the air. "Forgive me for spending your savings like this, but it's for our grandson. It's for the family." In December, Mason was born. When Rodrigo called me from the hospital, I was ready, with the diaper bag I had bought, the gifts I had knitted with my own hands. "Mom, maybe don't come today. Veronica is very tired and needs rest. We'll let you know tomorrow." Tomorrow turned into 3 days. When they finally let me go to the hospital, Mason was already 4 days old. The room was full of flowers, balloons, visitors. Veronica's parents, her sisters, her friends. I arrived with my humble gift and my broken heart. Veronica allowed me to hold Mason for exactly 5 minutes. "Be careful with his head, madam. Not like that. Let me show you how it's done." That beautiful baby, with Rodrigo's eyes and George's nose, was my grandson, but it felt like he was Veronica's private property. February arrived with the house almost finished. It looked spectacular. But when I went to see my supposed bedroom, my heart sank. It wasn't a bedroom. It was a service room. Small, dark, with a tiny bathroom and a window overlooking the back patio. "It's temporary, Mom," Rodrigo explained, "until we finish arranging everything." A lie. It was all a lie, and I had been too foolish to see it coming. March of the following year came with the promise of the move. The house was ready, stunning, with its 2 gleaming stories and perfectly designed yard. Veronica organized a small housewarming party, inviting her friends, her parents, work colleagues. I helped in the kitchen, preparing snacks that no one thanked me for. Mrs. Stella, the shrimp appetizers go on the patio table, not here, Veronica corrected me, moving the tray I had carefully arranged. During the tour Veronica gave her guests, I heard every word from the kitchen. This is the master bedroom with a walk-in closet and full bathroom. Here's Mason's room, designed with neutral colors to stimulate his development. And this is Rodrigo's study. No one asked where my room was. No one seemed to notice my absence from the tour. When everyone left, Veronica led me to the back of the house. Here is your space, Mrs. Stella. I know it's small, but it's cozy. Cozy. The room was barely 10 by 10 feet. The single bed barely fit next to the old wardrobe they had brought from my house. The bathroom was so narrow you had to enter sideways. The window looked out at the neighbor's wall. It's temporary, I repeated Rodrigo's words like a mantra. It's temporary. But it wasn't. The move was chaotic. My house's furniture was distributed throughout the new construction. My sofa ended up in the main living area, my dining table in the guest area, my paintings on the walls Veronica chose. Everything I owned scattered everywhere, but nothing truly mine. Oh, Mrs. Stella, this armchair is very worn. We better put it in storage, Veronica said, pointing to the armchair where George used to read the newspaper every morning. These plates are chipped. We need to throw them away. The plates from my parents' wedding, with their gilded edges and small imperfections. This painting doesn't match the modern decor. The painting Rodrigo drew for me in elementary school, his first self-portrait. My entire life was being discarded, piece by piece. The rules arrived in the second week. Veronica called them cohabitation agreements and wrote them on a sheet of paper that she stuck to the refrigerator with a magnet. Kitchen hours, 7 to 8 a.m. and 6 to 7 p.m. Outside these hours, please do not use the stove. No receiving guests without 24 hours notice. Laundry days, Tuesday and Friday, maximum 2 loads. Prohibited from entering Mason's bedroom without authorization. I read that list, feeling the humiliation burn my cheeks. Prohibited from entering my own grandson's room. They're just to keep us more organized, Rodrigo explained when I complained. Living together requires boundaries, Mom. Don't take it personally. How could I not take it personally when they were treating me like an employee on my own land? The humiliations became daily occurrences. One Tuesday, Veronica entered my room without knocking. Mrs. Stella, did you use my shampoo? She asked with her arms crossed. No, I have my own. Well, because yesterday it was full and today it's half empty. And since you're the only one who uses the upstairs bathroom when cleaning, I told you I didn't use it, Veronica. All right. I'm just saying if you need something, you can ask for it. You don't have to take things that aren't yours. She was accusing me of being a thief, on my own land, with my own money invested in every square inch of that house. Worse was the day I wanted to hold Mason. The baby was crying in his stroller in the living room, and I was nearby folding laundry. I picked him up, gently rocking him just as I had rocked Rodrigo 34 years ago. Veronica ran down the stairs. What are you doing, Mrs. Stella? Nothing. I was just calming him down. I've told you 1,000 times not to hold him without washing your hands first. The germs, madam, the germs. She snatched Mason from my arms as if I were a threat, as if I were a dangerous stranger. I washed my hands, I lied, feeling the tears wanting to come out. No, you didn't. I saw you. You were folding laundry, and then you touched him. Please be more careful with my son. My grandson. Not her son. My grandson. May brought another surprise. We were having dinner, one of the few times the 3 of us shared the table. Mrs. Stella, we need to talk about something important, Veronica began, delicately wiping her mouth. Rodrigo stopped eating, looking at his plate. The truth is that the house expenses are very high. Water, electricity, gas, property tax, everything went up a lot. I can help, I offered. I have my pension. Yes, well, That's precisely what we wanted to talk about. We think it would be fair for you to contribute a proportional share of the expenses. Of course, no problem. How much? Veronica slid a paper across the table. It was a detailed list. Electricity, water, gas, internet, property tax, maintenance. At the bottom, in red numbers, suggested monthly contribution, $4,500. $4,500. Almost half of my pension. That's a lot, I stammered. Mrs. Stella, you live here, you use the utilities. You can't expect everything to be free. But I put $850,000 into the construction, and the land is mine. Veronica's face hardened. The land is yours, but the house is ours. We paid for the construction, the finishes, everything. Your contribution was voluntary. No one forced you. I looked at Rodrigo, hoping he would defend me, that he would say something. Mom, it's fair. We all have to contribute. That night, alone in my little back room, I did the math. With the monthly payment, I would have barely $3,000 left for food, medicine, transportation, everything. And I still had to pay for health insurance. I sat on the edge of the bed and took George's watch out of the nightstand drawer. They're robbing me, love, I whispered to the watch. They're robbing me of my money, my dignity, my grandson, and I don't know how to stop them. But then I remembered something. I remembered that months ago, when I started to feel like something wasn't right, I had called Mr. Peterson. He had insisted on reviewing the papers. Stella, bring me everything you signed. Everything. And I had done it. I had given him copies of every document. I got up from the bed and searched the bottom of my closet for the shoebox where I kept important papers. There was Mr. Peterson's card, and a note he had written himself. Stella, when you are ready to act, call me. I put the card in my pocket. It wasn't time yet. I needed more evidence, more proof, because something told me the worst was still to come. And I was right. The following months were the darkest of my life. June, July, August passed in a fog of daily humiliations that made me question whether I still existed or if I had become a ghost on my own land. Mornings were the worst. I would wake up at 5:30 before everyone else, just to use the kitchen without disturbing them. I would make my coffee in silence, careful not to let the coffee maker make noise. Once, I dropped a spoon in the sink, and Veronica came down furiously. Mrs. Stella, it's 6 a.m. Mason just fell asleep 2 hours ago. Can you be more careful? I apologized as if I had committed a crime, as if making noise in my own kitchen were an unforgivable sin. Worse was the day I wanted to invite Laura over for lunch. I notified Veronica a week in advance, as the rules required. Mrs. Stella, the house is committed that day. Some of Rodrigo's clients are coming over to close a deal. You can't have visitors. But I told you a week ago. And I'm telling you 2 weeks in advance that that day is busy. Business visits take priority. I had to cancel on Laura. I can't host you here. Should we meet at your place? I wrote her, feeling the shame burn deep. Stella, what's going on? She asked me over the phone. That house is on your land. How can you not have visitors? I didn't know how to answer, because explaining it out loud would make everything too real, too pathetic. In July, my sister Consuela came from Ohio to visit me. I hadn't seen her in 2 years. When she arrived and saw where they had relegated me, her eyes filled with tears. Stella, this is a servant's quarter. What did they do to you? It's temporary, I lied again, a lie I no longer even believed. During her 3-day visit, Consuela saw everything. She saw how Veronica spoke to me in that condescending tone. She saw how Rodrigo ignored me when his wife was present. She saw how I was forbidden to hold Mason without supervision. That baby is your grandson, Stella. You have rights. I don't want to cause trouble. Mason is Veronica's son, she decides. Mason is your son's son, and you are his grandmother. React, sister. They are walking all over you. But I remained paralyzed. I still believed that if I behaved, if I obeyed all the absurd rules, things would eventually get better. August brought the final straw that almost broke the camel's back. Veronica found a lipstick mark on a towel. Mrs. Stella, did you use the white towels in the guest bathroom? No, I have my own. Well, someone used them and stained them, and since you clean the bathrooms, it wasn't me, Veronica. Well, someone has to replace those towels. They cost $80 a set. I'm going to deduct $20 from your next payment. My next payment? As if I were an employee. As if the $4,500 I already paid monthly wasn't enough humiliation. That night, I called Mr. Peterson from my room, with the door closed and speaking in whispers. Mr. Peterson, I need to know exactly what I signed. I need to know if I can do anything. Stella, I've been waiting for you. Come to the office tomorrow. I have information you need to know. The next day, I invented a doctor's appointment. I took the subway to downtown, walked the 3 blocks to the old building where Mr. Peterson had his office for 40 years. He greeted me with a paternal hug. He offered me coffee, made me sit down. Then he pulled out a thick folder. Stella, what I'm about to tell you, you won't like, but you need to know it. My heart started beating faster. The papers you signed were not a temporary authorization. It was a construction rights assignment. Essentially, you gave Rodrigo and Veronica the legal right to build on your land and register the construction in their name. The world began to spin. What does that mean? It means that the house, although it is on your land, is legally their property. If they wanted to, they could sue you for land use and force you to pay rent to live there. But Benjamin said it was temporary, that I would maintain ownership. Benjamin lied, or worse, he knew exactly what he was doing. I have investigated that notary. He has several lawsuits for real estate fraud. He is a close friend of Veronica's. They work together regularly. Tears began to fall uncontrollably. Mr. Peterson, I invested $850,000. It's all I had. I know, Stella, and there's more. I investigated Veronica's finances. She has debts of $420,000 on credit cards. She is being sued by 2 banks. That woman is desperate for money. Everything started to make sense. The convenient pregnancy, Rodrigo's sudden interest, the quick construction, the constant pressure. What can I do? I asked, wiping my tears. We can sue. We have grounds for fraud, to recover your investment, to fight for the property. But I need you to bring me more evidence. Recordings, messages, documents, everything you can get. I left that office a changed person. I was no longer the naive grandmother who believed in her son's good intentions. I was a woman who had just realized she had been scammed by her own family. I bought a small recorder at a downtown stall, $400 that hurt to spend, but that I knew was an investment. Back home, or what was left of it, Veronica was waiting for me at the door. Where were you, Mrs. Stella? I looked for you all afternoon. Mason was crying, and I needed you to watch him while I worked. I had a doctor's appointment. I told you. Well, next time leave your phone on. I called you 10 times. I checked my phone. There were no missed calls. That night, in my room, I turned on the recorder and hid it in the pocket of my robe. From that moment on, every conversation, every humiliation, every absurd order was recorded. September arrived with the rent payment. Veronica called me into the living room. Mrs. Stella, the $4,500 monthly dollars are no longer enough. Utilities went up. Starting this month, it will be $6,000. $6,000, more than half of my pension. I can't pay that, Veronica. Then we will have to look for other alternatives. Perhaps it is time for you to look for a cheaper place to live. The recorder in my pocket captured every word, every veiled threat, every attempt to drive me off my own land. And I continued gathering evidence. I continued to be the obedient old lady who didn't cause trouble. Because now I had a plan. Now I knew exactly what I had to do. I was just waiting for the perfect moment to act. October found me transformed. On the outside, I was still the same submissive Stella, the one who asked permission to use her own kitchen, the one who bowed her head to Veronica's every order. Inside, I was a woman on a mission, a woman who documented every injustice with the precision of a detective. The recorder became my best ally. I carried it in the pocket of my robe, in my shopping bag, hidden among the rags when I cleaned. Every conversation was recorded, every humiliation, every threat, every lie. One afternoon, while pretending to clean Rodrigo's study, I found something that chilled me to the bone. On his desk, half hidden under some papers, there was a bank document, a mortgage loan statement. I took out my phone with trembling hands and took a picture of it. The loan was for $1,200,000. The collateral, my land. The guarantee, the construction registered in Rodrigo and Veronica's name. They had used my property to get into debt, without my permission, without my knowledge. That night, I met with Mr. Peterson again. I brought him the photographs, the recordings, everything. Stella, this is fraud. Major fraud. They used your property as collateral without your consent. And the loan? What was it for? Mr. Peterson investigated. 2 days later, he called me with the answer. The money was used to pay off Veronica's debts and to buy the new SUV they have. It was not for construction. The construction was paid for by you with your $850,000. I sat on a park bench where no one could hear my conversation. The world spun around me as I processed the information. I also discovered something else, Mr. Peterson continued. Benjamin, the notary, was disbarred 3 months ago. The documents you signed do not have full legal validity. There are irregularities. What does that mean? It means we can fight, and we can win. But we need to act fast before they try to legalize anything else or sell the property. Sell? Can they do that? With the fraudulent documents they have, they could try. I've seen cases like this. That's why we need to move now, Stella. I spent the next few weeks preparing. Mr. Peterson drafted the lawsuit. Real estate fraud, illegal use of property as collateral, falsification of documents, dispossession. We gathered all the evidence, the recordings, the photographs, the bank statements, testimonies from Laura and Consuela. We also investigated Veronica further. Mr. Peterson hired a private investigator. What we discovered was devastating. Veronica had 2 maxed-out credit cards. She owed $420,000 as Mr. Peterson had said, but she also had a lawsuit for fraud from a previous company she worked for. She had falsified invoices. She had been fired and sued. Rodrigo knew nothing of this. My son had married a professional liar and didn't even know it. One November night, as we were having dinner, Veronica dropped another bomb. Mrs. Stella, Rodrigo and I have been thinking. This cohabitation situation is not working. Rodrigo looked at his plate, unable to look me in the eye. We think it would be better for everyone if you found your own place, a small apartment nearby. That way we would maintain our independence but still be in touch. The recorder in my pocket captured every word. But this is my land, I said softly, without getting upset. Yes, but the house is ours, and living all together is causing friction. You deserve your tranquility, Mrs. Stella. We can help you with the rent for a place for the first few months while you settle in. They wanted me out. They wanted my land, my investment, my heritage. And they wanted to throw me out like an old piece of furniture that was no longer useful. Let me think about it, I said, getting up from the table. In my room, I called Mr. Peterson. It's time. Prepare everything. I want to act next week. Are you sure, Stella? Completely sure. The next few days were the hardest of my life, continuing to pretend normalcy, knowing what was coming. Watching Rodrigo play with Mason, knowing that in days our relationship would change forever. Part of me still loved my son. I still wanted to believe he was Veronica's victim, that she had manipulated him. But another part, the part that had awakened after months of humiliation, knew the truth. Rodrigo had chosen. He had chosen the money, the convenience, the easy life. And he had sacrificed me in the process. On the Tuesday of the following week, Rodrigo called me. It was midday, and I was at the market buying vegetables. "Mom, I'll be quick because I'm heading out. We moved to Austin, Texas last week. Veronica got an amazing job there, and well, we forgot to tell you. You know how these things are? It all happened so fast." The world stopped. The vegetable lady was charging me, but I didn't hear her. I only heard those words. "We forgot to tell you. They had moved, with my grandson, with my $850,000 invested, with my land mortgaged, and they had forgotten to tell me." "That's fine, son," I replied with a calm I didn't feel. "Good luck with that new chapter." I hung up. I left the vegetables there, unbought. I walked straight home, went up to my room, closed the door. I opened my laptop. I had bought it at a nearby internet cafe, paying in cash so Veronica wouldn't know I had one. I accessed my email. I drafted the message to Mr. Peterson. "It's time. Let's start everything today. I'm attaching the last recordings." I hit send. Then I did something else. I entered the family group chat, the one with my sisters-in-law, my cousins, my sister. I wrote a long, detailed message. I told them everything. The scam, the fraud, the humiliations, Veronica's debts, the illegal loan. I attached photos of the documents. I hit send and turned off my phone. I sat on the edge of my bed, hugging George's watch. "That's it, love. I'm tired of being the fool. I'm tired of letting them walk all over me. Now it's my turn." In 72 hours, Rodrigo would receive a court summons, an order to freeze accounts, a lawsuit for fraud that could land him in jail. And when that happened, he would finally understand that forgetting about your mother has consequences, because I hadn't forgotten anything. And now, finally, it was time to collect. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed, looking at the turned-off phone on the nightstand. Outside, the city maintained its normal rhythm. Dogs barked, cars passed, life went on. But inside me, something had changed forever. At 6 a.m, I turned on the phone. Messages immediately started pouring in. Laura, Consuela, my sisters-in-law, my cousins. Everyone had seen what I shared in the family group. "Stella, I can't believe what they did to you." "Cousin, count on us for anything you need." "That jerk Rodrigo is going to pay for this." But the message that broke my heart was from Patricia, my sister-in-law. "Stella, George would be proud of you. It was time you defended yourself. We love you." I showered, got dressed, made coffee. For the first time in months, I used the kitchen without fear, without watching the clock. Anyway, there was no one left to bother. The house was empty. Rodrigo and Veronica had left without saying goodbye, like thieves in the night. At 9 a.m, Mr. Peterson arrived at the house. He was accompanied by another younger lawyer, his partner, Mr. Mendez. "Stella, good morning. Ready for this?" "More ready than I've ever been in my life." We sat at the dining table, the same table I had bought with my first secretary's salary 35 years ago. Mr. Peterson spread documents on the surface. "The lawsuit has been filed. The judge admitted it this morning because it is blatant fraud. They will have the notification in 48 hours. And the embargo? It's already in process. We froze the account holding the mortgage loan. We also alerted the bank so they can't make any movements with the property." Mr. Mendez added, "Also, we contacted the district attorney's office regarding the fraudulent notary. Benjamin already has a search warrant. If Veronica and he work together on this, she will also face charges. And Rodrigo? I asked, feeling my voice crack. Mr. Peterson sighed. Rodrigo is an accomplice, Stella. He signed documents, used your property, benefited from the fraud. Legally, he is as guilty as Veronica. I nodded, swallowing my tears. My son, my only son. The boy who had grown up in this house, who had played in this yard, who had promised to always take care of me. There's something else you need to know, Mr. Peterson continued. We investigated the job offer in Austin, Texas. It doesn't exist. Veronica doesn't have a job there. They moved to flee, to get away before you could react. So what are they going to do? Probably try to sell the house quickly before we legally catch them. That's why we acted so fast. The property is already frozen. They can't sell it without facing criminal consequences. I spent the rest of the day in a strange state of alert. Every time the phone rang, my heart jumped. But Rodrigo didn't call. Neither did Veronica. Absolute silence. On Thursday afternoon, 48 hours after sending my email, I received the call I had been waiting for. Rodrigo. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Mom? His voice sounded desperate, broken. Mom, what did you do? Good afternoon, Rodrigo. Don't give me that. We just got a court summons. Are you suing us? You, my own mother? Yes. I'm suing you and your wife for fraud, dispossession, and illegal use of my property. You're crazy. We did everything in good faith. You agreed to everything. I agreed under false pretenses. I signed documents that I was told were temporary when they were actually an assignment of rights. You used my property as collateral for a loan without my authorization. And you spent my $850,000 on paying off Veronica's debts and buying an SUV. Silence on the other end. Mom, I didn't know. I didn't know what, Rodrigo? Didn't know your wife has $420,000 in debts? Didn't know she was fired from her previous job for fraud? Or didn't you know you had me living in a servant's quarter after investing all my savings in your house? Mom, please. We can fix this. It doesn't have to go to court. You should have thought about that before moving without telling me, before forgetting you had a mother. It was a last-minute decision. Veronica got a job and... Veronica doesn't have a job in Austin, Rodrigo. We already investigated. They left to flee because they knew what they had done. Another silence. Longer. Heavier. What do you want, Mom? Money? The house? Tell me what you want and we'll fix it. I want justice. I want you to face the consequences of your actions, and I want to regain my dignity. You're going to ruin us. The embargo left us without money. We have a baby, Mom, your grandson. My grandson whom you wouldn't let me hold. My grandson whom I forgot I was a grandmother to when you forgot to tell me you moved. Please, Rodrigo's voice cracked. Mom, please, I'm your son. Those words hurt more than I expected. I closed my eyes, squeezed George's watch I had in my pocket. That's precisely why it hurts so much, Rodrigo. Because you are my son. And yet you betrayed me. Mom, you have a preliminary hearing on Monday. I suggest you get a good lawyer. Mr. Peterson won't show mercy. Wait, don't hang up. I hung up. I turned off the phone. I sat on the living room sofa, the same one where Rodrigo used to fall asleep watching cartoons. The tears I had been holding back finally came out. I cried for the son I had lost, for the family I would never have, for the years of humiliation I had endured, believing that love could overcome everything. But I also cried with relief, because for the first time in years I had defended my dignity. I had said enough, and although it hurt, although it broke my heart, I knew I had done the right thing. Laura arrived that night with food. She sat with me in silence, holding my hand. Do you think I did the right thing? I asked her. You did what you should have done years ago, Stella. No one has the right to treat you like that, not even your own son. That night, I slept better than I had in months. No hidden recorder, no fear of making noise, no absurd rules stuck to the refrigerator, because finally, after so long, I felt like the owner of my own life again. The weekend was an agony of silence. Rodrigo didn't call again. The phone remained silent, mocking me with its turned-off screen. But I knew the calm was just the prelude to the storm. On Monday at 8 a.m, Mr. Peterson picked me up to go to the preliminary hearing. I put on my best dress, the beige one George had given me for our last anniversary. I put my hair up in an elegant bun. I wanted to look dignified, strong, not like the broken old woman they had tried to make me. The courthouse was downtown. Old building, echoing hallways, people waiting on worn wooden benches. Mr. Peterson led me to a small room. "Breathe, Stella. You'll see that everything will be fine." At 9 sharp, we entered the courtroom, and there they were. Rodrigo in a suit, haggard, drawn. Veronica in a discreet black dress, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She tried to look vulnerable, a victim. But I already knew her game. We looked at each other. Rodrigo immediately looked down. Veronica held my gaze with pure, undisguised hatred. The judge entered and the hearing began. He read the charges: real estate fraud, falsification of documents, illegal use of property as mortgage collateral, dispossession. Their lawyer, a young guy in a cheap suit, tried to argue that everything had been a misunderstanding, that I had given my consent, that it was a family dispute that did not warrant legal action. Mr. Peterson destroyed every argument with surgical precision. He presented the recordings where Veronica threatened to kick me out. He presented the fraudulent loan documents. He presented the report on Benjamin, the corrupt notary. "Your Honor, Mr. Peterson said in a firm voice, "My client is a 68-year-old woman who was systematically dispossessed of her assets by her own son and daughter-in-law. She invested $850,000 of her only savings believing she was building a family home. Instead, she was relegated to a servant's quarter, forced to pay rent on her own land, and finally abandoned without even a goodbye." Rodrigo wiped his tears. Veronica remained rigid, calculating. The judge reviewed the documents with a grave expression. Then he looked at Rodrigo. "Mr. Rodriguez, is it true that you used your mother's land as collateral for a mortgage loan without her explicit consent?" Rodrigo stammered. I thought. She knew." "Yes or no, Mr. Rodriguez?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And is it true that you moved residence without informing the owner of the land where your home was built?" "Yes, but—" "Enough." The judge closed the folder with a sharp bang. "I find the lawsuit admissible. The embargo on the property and bank accounts is maintained. A criminal investigation is ordered against Mrs. Veronica Sanchez for her relationship with the notary Benjamin Hidalgo. Next hearing in 30 days for the presentation of additional evidence." The gavel fell. Veronica jumped up. "This is unfair. That manipulative old woman tricked us. She signed everything voluntarily." "Order!" the judge shouted. "Mrs. Sanchez, one more outburst and I will charge you with contempt. Be seated." We left the room. In the hallway, Rodrigo caught up with me. He looked shattered, as if he had aged 10 years in a week. "Mom, please, let's talk. This doesn't have to destroy our family." "Rodrigo, you destroyed our family when you decided I didn't matter." "It was Veronica. She convinced me of everything. I didn't know about her debts, her legal problems. She lied to me." Veronica approached like a caged beast. "Now you're blaming me. You agreed to everything. You signed the papers." "Because you told me it was normal, that all families did it that way." I watched them fight and felt a strange mix of sadness and satisfaction. The perfect mask of their marriage was falling apart. Mr. Peterson took my arm. "Let's go, Stella. You don't have to witness this." But Veronica wasn't finished. She stood in front of me with her arms crossed. "This won't end here, madam. We're going to fight. We're going to prove that you gave us everything voluntarily. And when we lose everything because of you, you will never see your grandson again." That threat hit me in the chest. Mason, my innocent grandson, in the middle of all this mess. "Mason is the only thing that hurts me in all this," I replied with a shaky but firm voice, "because he is not to blame for having a fraudulent mother and a cowardly father. But I won't let you use that child as a shield to get away with it. You're a bitter old woman who can't stand to see her son happy. I would be happy to see my son happy, but you don't make him happy, Veronica. You're just dragging him into your pit of lies and debts." Rodrigo stepped between us. "Stop it, both of you." I looked him in the eyes, those eyes that once looked at me with pure filial love. "Rodrigo, you still have time to do the right thing. You can testify in my favor, admit what you did, try to repair the damage. Or you can stay with her and sink completely. She's my wife, Mom. She's the mother of my son. And I am your mother, the woman who carried you, raised you, gave you everything. But it seems that means nothing to you anymore." I turned and walked toward the exit with Mr. Peterson. Behind me, I heard Veronica's screams, Rodrigo's crying, the chaos of their world collapsing. Outside, the sun was shining with an almost offensive intensity, as if the universe ignored that my heart was in pieces. "You did very well, Stella," Mr. Peterson told me. "I know it hurts, but you are on the right side. What if I lose my son forever? If you lose him for defending your dignity, then he was never truly yours." Those words stayed with me all the way home. The house was empty, yes, but now it was also free. Free from absurd rules, from looks of disdain, from daily humiliations. That afternoon, alone in my room, I received a message from an unknown number. It was a photo of Mason playing with blocks, and a text, "Your grandson you will never see again. I hope your revenge was worth it. Veronica." I cried, clutching George's watch. I cried for Mason, for Rodrigo, for all that could have been and never would be. But I didn't regret it. Because sometimes true love means letting go. And sometimes it means fighting, even if it hurts to the soul. The following weeks were an emotional roller coaster. Every morning I woke up expecting to feel regret for what I had done. But it never came. Instead, I felt something I had forgotten. Peace. Mr. Peterson kept me informed of every development. The investigation into Benjamin revealed that he had falsified documents for at least 12 other families. Veronica had been his accomplice in 3 of those cases, receiving commissions for referring clients. She was a professional scammer, and Rodrigo had been only her most convenient victim. "Stella, there's news," Mr. Peterson told me one late November afternoon. "Rodrigo wants to talk to you. Without lawyers, without Veronica, just the 2 of you." My first instinct was to refuse, but something in me, that part that was still a mother, needed to hear him. We met at a neutral coffee shop, one of those impersonal places full of people who didn't know us. Rodrigo arrived 15 minutes late. He had a few days' beard, deep dark circles under his eyes, his suit wrinkled. He looked destroyed. He sat across from me without saying anything for a long minute. He just looked at me as if he were seeing a ghost. "Mom, he started, but his voice cracked. "Speak, Rodrigo. That's what you came for. You were right, about everything. Veronica lied to me from the start. The debts, the previous frauds, her relationship with Benjamin. Nothing she told me was true." "And when did you realize?" 2 weeks ago. I found emails between her and Benjamin. They planned everything before we even met. She investigated me, Mom. She knew about the land you inherited from Dad before I even mentioned it. She sought me out on purpose. Those words should have given me satisfaction, but I only felt sadness. Sadness for my son, so naive, so manipulated. And Mason? Rodrigo's eyes filled with tears. Veronica is using him. She threatens not to let me see him if I testify in your favor. She says she will claim I am a negligent father, that I let you mistreat our son. Me? Mistreat Mason? When she barely let me hold him. I know, Mom. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry for how we treated you. I'm sorry for robbing you. I'm sorry for not defending you when she humiliated you. I'm sorry. His voice was lost in sobs. Seeing my son cry broke my heart, but I wasn't going to give in. Not yet. Rodrigo, apologies are fine, but I need more than words. I know. That's why I came. I'm going to testify. I'm going to tell the truth about everything, about how Veronica planned everything, about the fraud, about how we treated you. I'm going to face the consequences. And Veronica? I've filed for divorce. Mr. Peterson referred me to a lawyer. I will fight for custody of Mason, although I know it will be difficult. I reached my hand across the table and touched his. It was cold, trembling. Son, you did terrible things. You hurt me in ways I didn't know were possible, but you are still my son. And if you are willing to do the right thing, to face the truth, then we can try to rebuild something. Do you forgive me? Forgiving you will take time. Trusting you again will take even longer. But I'm willing to try. As long as you understand one thing, I will never again allow myself to be treated the way I was treated. I will never again be the convenient mother who accepts crumbs of attention. I don't want you to be that, Mom. I want you to be my mother, the strong woman who raised me, the one who taught me that doing the right thing sometimes hurts, but it's necessary. 2 weeks later was the second hearing. This time, Rodrigo sat on my side. His testimony was devastating. He told everything. How Veronica manipulated him, how they planned to use the land, how they relegated me to the servants' quarter, how they charged me rent. Veronica looked at him with pure hatred as he spoke. Her lawyer tried to discredit him, but the evidence was overwhelming. The emails between her and Benjamin, the falsified documents, the testimonies of neighbors who had seen how they treated me. The judge listened to everything with an increasingly severe expression. When the statements were finished, he took just 5 minutes to deliberate. I have seen many cases in my career, but this one is particularly painful, he began. A mother dispossessed by her own family. An elderly woman treated as a burden on her own property. Veronica tried to interrupt, but her lawyer stopped her. Therefore, I rule in favor of the plaintiff, Mrs. Stella Rodriguez. The immediate return of the amount of $850,000 plus interest and damages is ordered. The mortgage loan is annulled as it was obtained through fraud. Ownership of the construction reverts to Mrs. Rodriguez. Veronica stood up, shouting, "We don't have that money. It's impossible." Then the construction will be seized and auctioned. The proceeds of the sale will cover the debt. Furthermore, Mrs. Sanchez will face criminal charges for fraud. And Mr. Rodriguez, Rodrigo tensed up. Mr. Rodriguez has cooperated fully with justice and has shown genuine remorse. Therefore, he will not face criminal charges, but must pay a fine of $100,000 for his participation. The gavel fell. I had won. Outside the courthouse, Rodrigo hugged me. "Thank you for giving me a chance, Mom. Now you have to prove you deserve it." And he did. The following months were slow reconstruction. Rodrigo moved into a small apartment. He fought for and won shared custody of Mason. Every Sunday, he came to visit me with my grandson. The house built on my land was auctioned. A young couple bought it for $2,800,000. After paying off debts and legal costs, I was left with $1,200,000. With that money, I sold the entire property for $3,800,000. The total gave me $5 million. I bought a small but bright apartment in the Queens neighborhood. 2 bedrooms, a balcony with plants, a view of a park, my space, only mine. I donated $500,000 to a foundation that helps elderly women who are victims of family abuse. Because I was lucky to know Mr. Peterson to have the resources to fight. Many don't. I invested the rest wisely, this time with a real financial advisor. One Sunday afternoon, Rodrigo came over with Mason. The boy, now 2 years old, ran into my arms shouting, "Grandma!" I melted. 6 months after the judgment's resolution, my life was completely different. I woke up one May morning in my apartment. The sun streamed in through the white curtains I had chosen myself, and for the first time in years, I felt something I had forgotten. Joy. The apartment in Queens had become my sanctuary. Small, yes, but every corner was mine. The ivory walls I painted with Laura's help, the geranium pots on the balcony, the photo of George in the living room next to a new one of Mason. Here, no one told me what time I could cook or when to wash my clothes. Rodrigo kept his word. Every Sunday, he arrived with Mason, and little by little, we rebuilt something resembling a relationship. It wasn't the same as before, it probably never would be, but it was honest. There were no more masks, no convenient lies. "Mom, I brought your favorite dessert," he said that Sunday, walking in with a box of pastries from the corner bakery, that traditional bakery we used to visit when he was a child. Mason ran straight into my arms. "Grandma, look at my dinosaur!" I knelt down to his level, forgetting for a moment my knees weren't what they used to be, and admired his toy with genuine interest. "It's beautiful, my love. What's its name?" "It's named George, like my grandpa who is in heaven." My eyes filled with tears. I looked at Rodrigo, who smiled sadly. "I've been telling him about Dad," he explained. "About what he was like, what he did, how much he loved you. I want Mason to know where he comes from." While Mason played in the living room, Rodrigo and I sat on the balcony with coffee. "How are things with Veronica?" I asked, not out of morbid curiosity, but because her situation affected my grandson. "The divorce was finalized last week. She has partial custody but supervised. The judge didn't trust leaving her alone with Mason after everything that came out in the trial." "And how is she?" Rodrigo sighed. "I don't really know. She moved in with her parents in Connecticut. She's facing fraud charges along with Benjamin. Her lawyer says she'll probably get a suspended sentence for being a first-time mother, but she will have a criminal record." "Do you hate her?" My son thought for a long time. "No. I think I pity her. She's a person who never learned to live without deceiving. But she's no longer my problem. My priority now is Mason and rebuilding my life." "And with me? How do you feel about me?" "Ashamed. Every day. Every time I see this apartment and think it could have been bigger, more comfortable if we hadn't robbed you. Every time I see Mason and think about how they forbade you to hold him." "Rodrigo, no, let me finish. I was a terrible son. I chose a woman I had just met over the woman who gave me life. I allowed them to treat you like garbage. And the worst thing is that part of me knew it was wrong, but it was easier to look the other way." "And what did you learn from all this?" "That silence makes you an accomplice. That true love requires courage. And that you, Mom, are the strongest person I know." I took his hand. "I'm not strong, son. I just got tired of being weak." That Sunday, after they left, I stayed on the balcony, watching the sunset. The city stretched out before me, millions of lives, millions of stories. And I was just one more. An older woman who almost lost everything, but who found the strength to regain her dignity. My phone rang. It was Patricia, my sister-in-law. "Stella, did you see today's newspaper?" "No, why?" "There's an article about Benjamin and other corrupt notaries. They mention your case. They say that thanks to your complaint, 5 other families were also encouraged to sue." I searched for the article online. There was my story, without my full name, but recognizable. And at the end, The journalist wrote, "This woman proved that it is never too late to defend what is yours. Her courage paved the way for other victims to find justice." I closed the phone and looked at George's photo. I did it, love. It cost me, it hurt me, it almost destroyed me. But I did it. 2 weeks later, I received an unexpected call. It was from the foundation I had donated money to. "Mrs. Rodriguez, we would like you to come and give a talk. There are many women who are going through similar situations as yours. Your story could help them." At first, I hesitated. I didn't consider myself an example of anything. But then I thought about all the Stellas there were in the world. The ones who were in that servants' quarter, swallowing humiliations, believing that love means enduring everything. I accepted. The talk was at a community center in Brooklyn. There were 40 women, most over 50, all with stories of family abuse, dispossession, manipulation. When I finished telling my story, many were crying. A woman about 70 years old approached afterward. "I've been living with my daughter and son-in-law for 10 years. They treat me like a maid. But I thought that's how it had to be, that I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice," I told her, taking her hands. "It might not be easy, it might hurt. But your dignity is worth more than the comfort of staying silent." Those words became my new purpose. I gave 3 more talks that year. I helped 2 ladies contact lawyers. I started a small support group that met monthly in my apartment. A year after the trial, on my 69th birthday, Rodrigo arrived early with Mason. "Happy birthday, Mom. I have something for you." He handed me a small box. Inside was a watch, not just any watch. It was George's pocket watch, but now restored, shiny, working perfectly. "I know how much it means to you. I had it repaired. Now it works like new." I held it in my hands, listening to its constant ticking, and thought about the entire journey. The losses, the battles, the small and large victories. "Thank you, son." "No, Mom. Thank you. For not giving up. For teaching me that it's never too late to do the right thing." That night, alone again but no longer lonely, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea. The city glowed below, full of possibilities. I thought about the Stella from 2 years ago, the one who lived in a servant's quarter asking permission to exist. And I thought about the Stella of now, the one who had her own space, her own voice, her own life. 18 months after the trial, I received a certified letter. The envelope was thick, official, with the logo of the Superior Court of Justice. For a moment, the old fear returned. Had Veronica appealed? Was there a new problem? I opened the envelope with trembling hands. But it wasn't what I feared. It was a notification that the case had been definitively closed. Veronica had been sentenced to 2 years of suspended prison and 5 years of probation for fraud. Benjamin had received 4 years of actual prison time. Everything was officially over. I called Mr. Peterson immediately. "You saw it, right?" he said with satisfaction. "Complete justice, Stella. It doesn't always happen like this." "Mr. Peterson, I can't thank you enough for everything you did for me." "Stella, I just did my job. You did the hard part. You had the courage to defend yourself when it would have been easier to stay silent." That afternoon, I decided to do something I had been putting off. I went to the cemetery where George rested. I hadn't visited his grave in months, busy with my new life, with rebuilding everything I had lost. I cleaned the headstone carefully, changed the wilted flowers for fresh gladioli, his favorites. I sat on the grass next to him, not caring if I stained my skirt. "It's all over, love," I told him softly. I regained our dignity. I regained the value of what we built together. And although it almost cost me our son, I think in the end, I regained him too. The wind blew gently, moving the leaves of the trees. I wanted to believe it was George, telling me he was proud. I wish you could see Mason. He looks so much like Rodrigo when he was a boy. He has that same loud laugh, that same curiosity about everything. And he calls me Grandma with so much affection that sometimes I forget all the bad things that happened. I stayed there for another hour, telling him everything. The Sundays with Rodrigo, the talks at the community center, the women I had helped, my apartment that smelled of coffee and fresh flowers every morning. When I got up to leave, I left something next to the flowers. It was a photocopy of the final judgment. I wanted George to know, somehow, that I had fought for what he had left me. The next Sunday, Rodrigo came with news. "Mom, I got a promotion, regional manager. It's a lot more money, but also more responsibility." "Congratulations, son. Your father would be proud." "There's something else. With the raise, I want to start paying you back. Not everything. I probably can never make up for the $850,000, but I want to try." "Rodrigo, I don't need to." "Yes, you need to, and I need to do it. Please, let me try to repair at least some of the damage." I accepted. Not because I needed the money, but because I understood it was part of his healing process. Every month, Rodrigo deposited $10,000 into my account. It wasn't much for him with his new salary, but for me, it represented something more valuable than money. It represented responsibility, maturity, redemption. In October, I turned 70. Rodrigo organized a surprise party in my apartment. It wasn't big. There were no luxuries. There were Laura, my sister Consuela, who traveled from Ohio, Patricia with her daughters, some new neighbors who had become friends, and the women from the support group I had formed. Mason ran toward me shouting, "Surprise, Grandma! I helped you pick out the cake!" It was chocolate, my favorite, simple but perfect. During the party, as I watched all those people who truly loved me, who celebrated with me not out of obligation, but out of genuine affection, I understood something. I had gained much more than I had lost. Yes, I had lost money. I had lost years of relationship with my son. I had lost the illusion of the perfect family. But I had gained self-respect. I had gained authenticity. I had gained the certainty that I could survive, that I was stronger than I thought. At the end of the night, when everyone had left, Rodrigo stayed to help me clean up. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course, son." "Did you forgive me? Truly, not just in words." I paused, setting down the plate I was washing. I looked him directly in the eyes. "You know what I learned from all this, Rodrigo? That forgiveness is not an event. It's a process. There are days when I see you with Mason, and my heart fills with love, and I feel like everything is behind us. There are other days when I remember that servant's quarter, and I still feel anger. I understand. But what I can tell you is that I chose to let go of the resentment, not for you, but for me, because carrying that weight was killing me. So yes, I have forgiven you. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It means remembering without pain." Rodrigo nodded, tears in his eyes. "That's all I can ask for." That night, after he left, I sat on my balcony like every night, but this time with George's watch in my hands, listening to its constant ticking. I thought about the Stella who answered that call almost 2 years ago, the one who heard, "We forgot to tell you," and felt her world crumble. That Stella was broken, lost, resigned. Now she was someone else. Not better or worse, just different. One who knew how to set boundaries. One who understood that self-love is not selfishness. One who had learned that sometimes you have to break everything to rebuild better. The city glowed in front of me, with its millions of lights, its millions of stories. And I was just one more, but she was mine, completely mine. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The cool night air, the distant sound of traffic, the scent of the gardenias on my balcony, all of that was real. All of that was mine. And for the first time in years, that was more than enough. 2.5 years after that call that changed my life, I found myself sitting on my balcony again, but this time with a notebook in my hands. One of the women from the support group had suggested I write my complete story. Mrs. Stella, what you went through needs to be told. There are thousands of women who need to know they are not alone, that they can get out of it. So I started writing, not to publish a book or anything grand, just to leave a testimony, so that one day, when Mason grew up, he could read these pages and understand why his grandmother did what she did. It was a sunny Saturday in March when I finished the last page. Just that day, Rodrigo came with unexpected news. "Mom, Veronica is leaving the country. She got a job in Spain. She's taking Mason." My heart sank. And the shared custody? The judge authorized the move. Veronica met all the requirements of her probation. She's been going to therapy. She paid all the fines. The judge considered it better for Mason to have stability, even if it means living far away. And how do you feel? Devastated, but also relieved. Veronica needs to start over, away from all this, and maybe, just maybe, that will make her a better person. For Mason's sake. Did you forgive her too? Rodrigo thought about it for a long time. I don't know if the word is forgive. But I understood that she is also a victim of her own lies. She grew up believing that money and appearances were everything. She never had an example of real love. In a way, Mom, she is poorer than us, even with that job in Europe. A week later, we all went to the airport. Veronica looked different. No excessive makeup, simple clothes, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She almost looked human. When she saw me, she hesitated. Then she approached with Mason by the hand. "Mrs. Stella." She began, but the words caught in her throat. "Take good care of my grandson," I said simply. "That's all that matters now." She nodded, her eyes bright. "I will. And I'm sorry for everything. I know it's not enough, but it's the truth." "Then may you do well, Veronica. Truly." I knelt down in front of Mason, who was now 3.5. "My love, you're going to a very beautiful place with your mommy. But Grandma will always be here, okay? We'll video chat. I'll send you letters and drawings." "And my dinosaur George?" he asked with his little voice. "Your dinosaur George will take care of you from here, my angel. And your grandpa in heaven, too." I hugged him with all my soul, trying to save that moment in my memory for the difficult days to come. We watched them go through security. Mason turned around 3 times to wave goodbye to me with his little hand. Rodrigo cried silently beside me. "My son is leaving, Mom. He's going far away. But not forever. He'll come back for holidays, and when he grows up, he'll decide where he wants to be." On the way back home, Rodrigo accompanied me to my apartment. "Mom, I know things will never be the same, but do you think someday we can be a normal family, without all this burden from the past?" "Son, normal families don't exist. They all have their problems, their secrets, their scars. What matters is if we are willing to heal together." "And are you willing?" "I've been willing for 2.5 years, Rodrigo, waiting for you to finish processing everything. Waiting for you to grow enough to understand what family really means." That night, alone again, I opened the notebook where I had written my story. I read the last line I had written. And then I understood that freedom has a price, but dignity is priceless. I thought about the entire journey. About that Stella who lived in a servant's quarter asking permission to exist. The one who opened her laptop and sent that email that changed everything. The one who faced her son in a courtroom. The one who rebuilt her life from scratch at 68. Every one of those Stellas was me, and all of them together had created the woman I was now. My phone vibrated. It was a message from one of the women in the support group, Rose, who had found the courage to sue her family last week. "Mrs. Stella, thank you for teaching me that it is never too late to take back my life. Today I started living again." I smiled. Maybe that was the true victory, not the money recovered, nor the house, nor even the rebuilt relationship with Rodrigo. It was knowing that my pain had served a purpose, that my story could light the way for other women trapped in the same darkness. I got up and walked to the window. The city stretched out before me, alive, pulsing, full of stories like mine. Stories of women who learn late but learn eventually, who fall but get back up, who lose but win the most important thing, themselves. I took George's watch from the table. We did it, love. It wasn't how we thought, but we did it. Our son learned. Our grandson will know where he comes from. And I became myself again. The watch read 10 o'clock at night. A new day would begin in 2 hours. A new day where I would choose how to live, what to do, who to be with. A new day of freedom. Because in the end, that's what I had gained. Not a perfect house or a perfect family. I had gained the freedom to be imperfect, to make mistakes, to set boundaries, to say no, to say yes, to live without asking permission. And that, I discovered, was the true wealth. Not what you possess, but what you don't allow them to take from you. Not what you inherit, but what you build with your own hands. Not what others think of you, but what you think of yourself. I closed the window and turned off the lights. Tomorrow would be another day, one more of this new life I had fought so hard to achieve. And as I got into bed in my small but mine apartment, in my space that smelled of coffee and gardenias, I smiled. Because finally, after so many years, I had returned home. Not to a house of bricks and cement, but to myself.